Hello, everybody, and welcome to Georgia Recruiting Rumors versus Facts here on UGASports YouTube channel. I am with Jed May. My name is Blaine Gilmer, and we are excited to bring you yet another week of Georgia football recruiting coverage. We're thankful, Jed, that we covered Georgia football instead of Florida football, because if we were covering Florida football, according to Dan Mullen, we wouldn't even have a show right now because it's during the season. It's not recruiting season right now, right?
Yeah, I can't believe, as highly paid as he is, that Kirby Smart doesn't know that he's focusing on other things other than X's and O's during the season. So surely, Kirby and Josh Brooks will have that conversation soon. But yeah, that's breaking news. I haven't been doing this job very long, so you learn something new every day.
Yeah, Josh Brooks is going to be like, wait, hold on a second. We are overspent. Our budget is through the roof because we're not supposed to be recruiting during the season. What's going on? I mean, Dan Mullen, if there's a worse thing that he probably could have said after what Kirby Smart said in his post game speech, it's just hard to fathom. And here comes Mr. Trent Smallwood with us. Trent, how's it going tonight, man?
What's going on?
Just excited, man. We're talking about, how it's not recruiting season right now. We don't even know why we're having a show tonight because Dan Mullen said today it's during the season. It's not recruiting season, right?
Yeah, we got about 4 more games before we need to rev up recruiting, so there's no need for us to be on the show.
Yeah, so it's going to be a short one tonight. We just wanted to say hey to everybody. No, we're going to be covering. There's some visitors coming into town this weekend. We're gathering those. Ben Bachman has posted a sticky thread to the UGASports vault, and as we get information on those, Trent, Ben, Jed, myself, all will be posting those up there. The biggest one, the headliner of those, would be Shamar James, in my opinion, the linebacker who decommitted from Florida, I guess, a week before the Georgia-Florida game, and now has subsequently visited Alabama since, where he is a Mobile, Alabama young man, from the Mobile area. And now, Jed, he's going to be making his way over to Georgia for the Missouri game. Another noon kickoff that Kirby Smart and company will be able to try to take advantage of, but that actually maybe works in their favor with it being a official visit for Shamar, because if Georgia takes care of business as they should, a 39-point favorite going into this one, they take care of business, they're going to have a lot of time to spend with that coveted linebacker.
Absolutely. Say the game ends at 3:34 or 3:30. Coaches out of the locker room, all that stuff at 4. And then they got all night Saturday, or all afternoon Saturday into Saturday night, and then Sunday to spend with Shamar. And then it was funny. I remember everyone remembers Kirby's Oscar Delt not so subtle recruiting pitch of we need explosive tight ends like him, talking about Brock Bowers. He said something similar to, or maybe not similar, but something that made me think of that today was someone asked him about linebackers today, and he said, Glenn Schumann has done a great job, and guys, when they're looking at schools, they look at how guys develop linebackers to the next level and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, Georgia with Tay Crowder and Roquan Smith, Monty Rice, those kind of guys. And as soon as he said it, I was like, I put in the live today, Shamar James, Shamar James.
Absolutely.
So that I'm sure, and that's one thing Shamar told me as well. Just Glenn Schumann has emphasized the development of the guys they put in the NFL. So, something that they're emphasizing to him and will continue to emphasize for sure throughout this weekend and beyond.
Trent, as I'm kind of sharing stuff right here on social media and everything, can you just kind of talk about, you've been around a long time covering recruiting, and when Alabama is involved, especially with a guy who's an in-state prospect like that, just talk about the dynamics that could be at play here. I know Georgia's definitely got the hottest, defense in the country right now, and is probably prominent on every defensive prospect that's going after mine. But just, how hard is it to pull somebody out of Mobile, Alabama, if Alabama's on them?
Yeah, it is tough because, that pulling a kid out of Alabama isn't the easiest thing to do in the world. But I think it over the past couple of years, it's maybe become a little easier. But and I think a lot has to do with it, like you were talking about, the development, the coaches on staff. And in the past, Alabama's had guys, kind of like NFL coaches, guys that have a history of sending, like positional coaches sending guys to the pros. And I think Georgia's built that, and especially adding Will Muschamp to the staff. And, Trey Scott's about to put several guys in the draft, and Glenn Schumann and all the other coaches. They've had Dan Lanning. They have a history of putting guys in the NFL now. So I think it's become a little bit easier for Georgia to go into a Mobile, Alabama, and land the top tier defensive player. But I mean, not to say it's still going to be a tough one. I think point any kid out of Alabama, but it has become easier just because of the development that Georgia has on that staff and able to put guys at the next level that what Alabama's had in the past. And I think that's what's made it so tough on guys. They want to stay home. Why wouldn't you want to stay home and get developed by the best coaches? And you're going to go to the NFL. So I think that's become a little easier with Georgia staff.
Yeah, and when you're talking about Shemar James specifically too, we say all the time where there's smoke, there's fire, right? And the interactions he does publicly on social media with Jalen Walker and other Georgia commits, if he's saying that kind of stuff publicly about how much he loves Georgia defense and all that kind of stuff, you only know what's going on behind the scenes with some of those conversations. And that leads me to, speaking of public statements of how much they like what they see out of Georgia. That was the exact quote from Julian Humphrey on his tweet, after Georgia completes a 34-7 beatdown of the Florida Gators. He says, "I like what I saw!" ! All the one tweet there. So Jalen Humphrey, I know we're going to get a lot of Julian Humphrey. Sorry, I said Jalen. Julian Humphrey. We're going to get a lot of questions, I'm sure, about Julian, especially with him having decommitted from Florida the week of the Georgia-Florida game. Trent, I mean, where do you think things stand right now with Julian? He tweeted out also he might need 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, what do you think's going on right now with Julian Humphrey?
I mean, I would say that a big reason he decommitted in the first place was he'd been taking visits to Georgia. He kind of started back in the spring or late spring. And Georgia's been on his mind since then, and then he took the visit, a few weeks ago. I guess it was official visit, and things really started to pop. And I think, I think Georgia sits in a good position. I don't think any team is in front of Georgia. I think Texas A&M is trying to work into that, but I think Georgia's definitely the team to beat. Moving closer to an announcement.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think you've got not only Jaheim Singletary, who, Julian Humphrey, but you also got Jaheim Singletary that everybody thinks that Georgia's very close with. And we got some questions on those, so we'll get to them in a minute. Speaking of Jaheim, he's expected to make his way back for the Missouri game. We also have another defensive back in Jacoby Matthews from an LSU commit, which Jed, right now with the way things are at LSU, I think typically you look at some of those Louisiana guys and you're like, they're just taking visits and they're going to end up at LSU. But right now they don't even know who the head coach is going to be, Jed.
Oh, yeah. And we've talked about this with Shaz Preston too, right? I mean, it's the same thing. You feel like these LSU guys are going to end up at LSU. I mean, you look at the success of LSU receivers over the past few years with Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Kayshon Boutte, and Terrace Marshall, those guys. But like you said, no one knows who the head coach is going to be, let alone the offensive coordinator, the receivers coach, all that kind of stuff. So, schools like Georgia, Alabama, all these SEC schools are seeing all this chaos in Louisiana, and just they're jumping at all these guys like Jacoby Matthews, like Shaz Preston. Just this is your chance. If LSU becomes a power again, it becomes that much harder. So this cycle is a chance to really for those schools to really get in on some of these Louisiana kids.
Oh, and you're absolutely right about that, Jed. You're saying that when you say this is the chance, because LSU is not a program that is just deplete of not having anything, there. It's just the lack of structure that was there under Ed Orgeron really kind of turned a juggernaut into, they went from the penthouse to the outhouse real quick, as my grandfather, used to say. They got off course in a hurry. But the pieces are still there. The athleticism, they've recruited well enough, but you really got to hammer them during this transition. Be like, hey, the future's unknown, and how that's going to go. So Georgia, Alabama, Texas, all those schools, I'm sure that get in heated battles with LSU on a regular basis for recruits. I'm sure will be trying to take advantage of that. Trent, we've already talked about, if BJ Ojulari elects to go to the portal with Aziz being his brother, of course, there's a natural connection there. Plus, he's from Marietta, so that's something LSU has to watch out for as well. How many players are going to exit their roster after this season?
Yeah, I think the big issue is, the gaps between some of these teams are already, getting wide just with recruiting, and when you have these coaching changes, like, and LSU's kind of dragging it out, letting Orgeron stay on staff, and I don't really know how you go out and recruit.
He is, though. Have you seen he's been out at high school games recruiting? What do you say? Hey, I want you to go to LSU. I'm not going to be there, but you should go.
Yeah, and it's got to be tough. And I know a lot of these people are like, recruit to the school. I mean, if you're going to commit to a school, but that's hard when you don't know who's going to be over you at that school. It just makes things extremely difficult. And what I was talking about, the gaps are already a little bit wide with Georgia and Alabama. Kind of Texas A&M jumping in there a little bit, but it's even going to get more wide with these coaching issues at Florida, these coaching issues at LSU, and I mean it's good for Georgia and Alabama and those teams, but it's just going to make it that much tougher on a new coach coming in when the gap's that wide.
No doubt, no doubt. Some other visitors real quick I want to hit on before we start taking questions. So we mentioned Jacoby Matthews official visit. He's coming. Shemar James official visit. Hero Canoe, a defensive tackle, has Georgia in his top 5. He's from out west. He's supposed to be making the trip over here for an official visit. Like I said, Jaheim Singletary is expected. Andre Greene, Jed and Trent, whichever one you want to talk about. Adam Friedman put out a report that Georgia's kind of gaining some ground, but North Carolina and Clemson, still prevalent in this recruitment. Jed, I'll start with you and then go to Trent. With Andre Greene, he's going to come for 2 days. It's still an unofficial visit. He's going to probably take it official later in the year if he elects to do so. What do you think with Andre Greene? I mean, in terms of, Clemson fan growing up, North Carolina's been consistent with him, but Georgia, they're in need of that true number 1 receiver in this class. I mean, do you think, based on what Adam was reporting last week, where do you think things stand with Andre right now?
Yeah, it seems like Georgia's starting to work themselves back in this. Over the summer they were Georgia was up there, and then things kind of cooled off a little bit. Now I think Georgia's starting to work back in it. I wonder, because obviously with Andre coming Sunday through Monday, he won't get the game day experience and all that kind of stuff. So I wonder how much, and this is just spitballing, but I wonder how much of that will be the coaches, sitting down with him, explaining, the offensive scheme, how they could see him fitting, like you said, Blaine, as a number 1 receiver, more the, I guess, for lack of a better term, X's and O's type stuff of where they see him fitting in this offense with him, like I said, not being here for a game day atmosphere and those kind of things. So just an idea. I wonder, A, how much of the visit that will be, and B, how much of an impact that will make on him, sort of seeing what his role could be at Georgia.
Trent, there's different dynamics in recruiting. There's a lot of recruits that their parents are maybe not as involved in their recruitment. It's done through high school coaches. And then there's some that are very heavily parent involved. Andre Greene Jr. is one of those. His parents very heavily involved in his recruitment. I think there's some attachment there to North Carolina and Clemson. What do you think how do you think that dynamic is playing into this Georgia's pursuit of Andre Greene Jr.?
Yeah, I think Andre Greene actually took an official visit back in the summer.
Oh yeah, you're
back
correct.
in June.
Yes, he did.
But I think it's good for Georgia to get him on campus, and not only just for, hey, come up for an unofficial visit, maybe come to the game, only get to speak with them for a little while. Now they get a full day or a lot of time to sit down with the family, sit down with Andre, break down film, really break down everything, how he could be used from an offense standpoint. Let him get in there with Todd Monken and things, and it kind of be more detailed, kind of like an official visit, but knowing they've already spent their official visit, just having the chance to spend that time with the family, kind of connect with the family, and kind of overcome. Those relationships are strong with Clemson and North Carolina, but with the years Clemson and North Carolina have had, it's allowed Georgia to jump back in the mix, and with the year Georgia's having, and I think this is the opportunity for Georgia to sit down with the family and connect with them, and kind of show them how they're going to not only use their son, but kind of how they can take care of him on campus and the classroom and stuff like that. So I think it'll be a lot of one-on-one time, and it'll be a good opportunity for Kirby and Todd Monken to get to know the family and get to know Andre and kind of break down where things are.
No doubt. And we're about to go to questions. Also, I wanted to point out we're not going to give the full list here. That's why you got to be a member of the vault. But on the vault, we also have some talented 2023 and 2024 prospects that are coming into Athens this weekend that we've already confirmed. So make sure you're heading on over to the vault and subscribing over there. We post daily several updates and things that we come across on the recruiting as we cover things on the recruiting trail. But wanted to mention that, you can see right here, Dead Soxy is this little gift package that Roddy gave to me. Dead Soxy is sponsoring this show. I'd had this here as kind of a prop, right? It was just kind of sitting there, but then I remembered, hey, I can open it up and there's actually socks in there. Roddy gave me some to try out with this deal. And I wore some this weekend, man. That stuff they got in there, the grip that keeps the socks from, sliding down and all that kind of stuff. It's nice. I hate it when I wear boots and stuff a lot. So, you're walking and the stuff sliding down on you and everything. That doesn't happen when you're wearing these Dead Soxy socks, and they've got all different kind of colors and things like that. It was started by 2 Ole Miss, grads, so they know what SEC football means. So they're starting to put out alumni versions of socks and things like that. So make sure you go check out Dead Soxy. There's ads on UGASports.com that you can use promo codes and things like that to get you a little discount off of. So as you can see on the screen down there, presented by Dead Soxy. So we appreciate them for sponsoring this show. And without further ado, Jed, I'm going to go ahead and let you read off our first question here from OU Herschel Walker.
First, I have to say OU Herschel Walker. It took me till last week to understand this username, because like Oklahoma Herschel Walker, like,
yeah, I didn't know what it was to start off with either.
Last week you read it out loud. I was like, oh, I'm just an idiot. Anyway, OU Herschel Walker. Do we take another interior defensive lineman, or will we just add 1 or 2 more edge defenders instead? Also, if Quinn Ewers does hit the transfer portal and wind up at Texas, will that help Georgia with Arch Manning?
Well, I'm kind of of the opinion that Arch Manning is that guy, as Jock Peterson likes to say when he hits a home run and he runs out, I'm that guy, or I'm a, blankety blank,
What did he say, Blaine?
He says, I think Arch Manning thinks about himself that way very quietly. I think he's confident that he can compete with anyone in the country because he's that talented. But when you have a guy who should be only a year ahead of you and will be because of redshirting, even though he went to Ohio State, comes in and is talented, people comparing Quinn Ewers to Patrick Mahomes. I mean, that has to weigh in Arch's mind a little bit, doesn't it, Trent?
Definitely. But I'm Arch Manning, he's not going to be afraid of competition wherever he goes. I mean, if he comes to Georgia, he's behind Gunnar Stockton, a year behind Gunnar Stockton, 2 years behind Brock Vandegrift, and who knows how long Stetson's playing. He might play until he's 42. But there's going to be competition wherever you go. But I do think that's a situation he's probably monitoring. But I don't think it's necessarily going to impact where he goes one way or the other. I think Georgia's done an excellent job with Manning, and I think Texas has as well. And you can't never count out Ole Miss in that. But I really think those are 3 schools to watch, with Alabama right there too. But I do think Georgia's very much in the mix. Moving down, I guess closer to an announcement of Arch.
Yeah, no doubt. And then when you talk about interior defensive linemen, I think that Christian Miller is the guy that everybody, because he's technically still interior defensive line. I know he can, slide out a little bit, but he's getting up around that 300-pound mark. I mean, I think he's going to be primarily a 3 technique guy, can slide down. It kind of like a Devontae Wyatt. He really reminds me a lot of how Devontae Wyatt played against Florida, which may have been Devontae Wyatt's best game. That's how Christian Miller's been playing lately for Cedar Grove. So I see them taking Christian Miller. Now, a caveat to that, Jed, Alabama did offer Christian Miller today. And, anytime Alabama comes calling, that's something that a young man's going to listen to. So Alabama trying to get in late on Kristen Miller. That's something interesting. But
where have they been?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they've been waiting now with Kristen Miller. You know, he's a not only a charismatic guy, but he's a smart guy. And you know, with them waiting so late, it may not be as big of a deal to him. But I know it's a high honor to be offered by Alabama or Ohio State, Georgia, any of those type of schools. You're going to take it seriously once they do offer you. You know, Jed, when you're talking about edge guys, I'm sure they're going to add some more there. We've got CJ Madden, of course, is in this class of 2022. Darius Smith is in this class of 2022. You know, and they're going after a few more guys. I mean, you got any updates on edge prospects here lately?
You know, it's still one of those things. You know, obviously Shamar Stewart is out there. The Nye White saga, whatever has been covered. It doesn't sound like he's going to be in the class. So it's one of those things we've talked about at this point in the class. You know, it's going to come down to those last 2 or 3 scholarships and best player available, right? I mean, could it be
they added Michael too with the
right?
flip.
Exactly. So you know, it's one of those things. I could see it being either way. Honestly, it's one of those things that's going to come down to best player available. With those last couple spots, I could see it. I mean, we talked about actually Kristen Miller, Sean Washington's another guy that Georgia's been interested in. So, yeah,
it all depends on the fit, right? It all depends on where they're wanting. They've got edge guys right now, 3 edge guys in Michael, CJ Madden, and Darius Smith. And by the way, Darius Smith, guys, this weekend, he caught a 73-yard touchdown pass. They put him out wide and ran a fade with him, and it was just unfair. I mean, he caught it in stride and then broke like 7 tackles to go down the field. So Appling County using that big defensive end to go downfield and you know, catch a nice pass over there.
I would still monitor Marvin Jones closely.
I
think he is a prospect that Georgia is very high on, and he'd be one to watch moving down closer to December signing day. Yeah,
no doubt. I think I definitely think that, you know, Marvin Jones is someone, you know, from that American Heritage. American Heritage has been a place that's been very good to Georgia over the years. They have good connections with American Heritage, you know, community down there, and also that school. So Marvin Jones, definitely someone to watch. OU Herschel Walker had a follow-up question. Better chance with Andre Greene or Shaz Preston? Let's just do rapid fire on signing day. Right now, who do you give the better chance to, Jed?
I'd say Shaz Preston.
Trent?
I would say Shaz Preston going into the Andre Greene visit this weekend.
Yeah, I say Shaz Preston as well. He's going to have that official visit late, you know, between the SEC championship game and early signing day. And Georgia's so good at on-campus recruiting. I feel like that's a big opportunity to close. Them and Alabama have a huge opportunity there. Now let's go with Roxy 82. Jed, if you'll read that one for us.
Roxy says, I'll take the bait. Chances of Travis Hunter returning for the Missouri game this weekend.
All right, Trent, there you go.
Don't come to me with Travis Hunter questions every single week. I mean, he showed up twice and one when Georgia wouldn't have been playing. So, I mean, it could happen. I'm not going to say, I'm not ruling it out, but it's not going to be, again, it's not going to be one of these, I'm planning on a Monday to show up on Saturday. This will be something that probably takes place later in the week. See if Kirby and Muschamp can get him on campus again. I'm sure they're working him, but I don't know where Florida State plays this weekend, this coming weekend. I don't know if it's at home. I don't know if he's planning on visiting Florida State again. I don't know.
Doesn't matter if Florida State's playing. I mean, that ending. If you had, I think Florida State minus. If you had Florida State plus 9, and that just garbacle that happened at the end of the game with them trying to lateral it forth and Clemson scores to cover the spread. Oh, that's a terrible bad beat right there. But yeah, I think, Trent, if this game had been last week, you know, if they had played at home last week, I think you would have definitely seen Travis Hunter be back, just because I feel like there was momentum there and it's kind of rolling. But now maybe with a week to cool off, you know, who knows? He's got strong ties to Florida State, and they may have used that week where Georgia wasn't in town to kind of, you know, get back in touch with him and see what's going on.
Yeah, you never know because it was in between. There was 2 weeks in between the last time he
Oh
visited,
yeah,
and then he's putting
yeah.
out all these tweets saying he's 100% solid. Talking on ESPN, and then he shows back in Athens again, and then
The next day.
then the bye week. So I mean, it, I think there's really there's a lot of interest between the two parties. I think Travis Hunter has a lot of interest in playing for Georgia. It all comes down to his uncle's on the defensive back coach at Florida State. It's all going to come down to can I go somewhere else without you know something
How
happened
come?
with my family.
How comfortable is he making that Thanksgiving dinner very awkward for the
Yeah.
next 5 years? Like,
And I'm telling you, this is one of those things that nobody, if you got a prediction to put in, it's going to be hard to predict against Florida State. But if he chooses Georgia, it's not going to surprise me one bit. But it's going to be when the pen meets the paper. It's not going to be like, hey, I'm going to decommit, like I said, before Thanksgiving or something like that. It's
yeah.
going to be on signing day or on that it happens. But I'm not predicting that by any means right this second. But I think he respects his decision. He respects his family, and but I know Georgia there's a lot of interest in Georgia, and there's a lot of interest in playing for Kirby and Muschamp. I mean, there's what defensive back wouldn't want to play for those two, the way they develop and put in the NFL. So it's very extremely tough on him. It's family versus business decision basically.
No doubt, no doubt. And then here we got one from Realistic UGA Fan 1191 version 2.0. Gut feeling on when Singletary and or Humphreys pulls the trigger. Well, what I would say is I would just go to Twitter or Instagram and find their accounts and just hit that little bell button to turn them on notifications, because it could literally be at any time. And in our estimation, we had conflicting reports at different times where we thought could be any moment on a couple of those things, especially the Trent, the way that game was going with Georgia, Florida, and Julian Humphreys like live tweeting his support for Georgia during the game. I thought, well, at halftime, he may just pull the trigger and go ahead and commit or something.
Yeah, and then that wasn't a good look for Florida either. I mean, when you got a former commit, tweeting out
Trashing your school.
I mean, he was basically trashing play calls, trashing the way they were playing. It's just.
I mean, I remember at one point he just tweeted out some laughing faces. At one point, I mean, that's
laughing cat emojis. I mean, when you get the laughing cat emojis at your gameplay over there, that's
and look, this is the reason why you get to Monday and all this stuff's happened over the weekend. You've had decommits, you've had all this stuff. You get asked a recruiting question. You have a chance to kind of go on about recruiting and kind of resolve some of that stuff. But then to give the answer that Muschamp did today, I mean, if that water was hot,
or that Mullen did, yeah.
Yeah, what Mullen said today, if that water's hot, it's scorching now.
It's amazing how, and we were talking about this today, it's amazing how he didn't at least have just some sort of stock, like generic coach speak answer prepared.
Yeah.
For that.
It doesn't matter what you're doing. Like if you're not recruiting, then you're not recruiting, but don't tell
the whole world.
Don't tell the country you're not recruiting.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then 6 minutes later, his press conference gets abruptly ended. It's almost like, on the field in an NFL game or even in a college game when a team's trying to go fast and a play needs to be reviewed and they buzz down to the referee to say, hey, this needs to be. It's almost like the AD was watching the press conference and buzzed in and said, okay, we need to review that comment right there. And,
go down with a cramp. Go down with a cramp.
Yeah. Fall down. Take it down. All right. So Pine Tree 1. Is Jacoby Matthews' upcoming visit a big deal, or is he just another LSU lock? We've already touched on that. I just think it's too uncertain to tell. I think anytime you get a recruit, whether they're committed to elsewhere or not, on campus, especially in an official visit capacity, hey, that's a good foot in the door at the very least. I wouldn't say that I would make him a favorite to end up in the class, but Georgia does need as many DBs as they can possibly sign in the class of 2022. Jed, we got one from Scuffletown Dog here.
Where's Scuffletown? I never heard of that on the map. Anyway, says, hello, thanks for doing this show. Really enjoyed it. Pat myself on the back a little there. Who do we finish with in this class? Thanks. One question and many possible answers.
Okay, so I put up the commits here, and I'm going to take down that banner real quick. So these are I did them by the star ranking, of course, on Rivals, and of course, Tyree, Gunner, Branson, Michael, and Bear, all the 5 stars in the class, and then Trent, we've talked about Marquise Groves Killebrew. There's some people concerned as, does he flip or something like that. I think, him being the first one in this class, I think he's about as solid as they come, but I know people are going to be coming after him. But is he the type of guy, you can talk about the flip deal, and then is he a type of guy that if he continues to play and do some of the things he does, that he may could even get in that 5-star conversation?
I'm not sure he'll get up to 5-star. He very well could get up into the top 50. He is him and Humphrey remind me a lot of each other. They're both extremely talented. They're long. They can fly. Humphrey was the fastest. I think it was the fastest man out in Texas when they did that, and then Killebrew, Groves Killebrew was the. I think he was the second. Was he second?
They were racing each other. It was them, and then it was them and
him and the
Isaiah Bond.
Isaiah Bond, who's a Florida commit. I think he's still a Florida commit. But yeah, they're both athletic, talented. I think his relationships. He's with Morissette, and he's on that same 7-on-7 team we talk about every week with Gunner Stockton and all them guys. So it's going to be a hard flip at the end of the day, especially with him being the first commit. I know Georgia's still showing him the love. Texas A&M's came hard, but it's going to be a hard flip at the end of the day.
Yeah, so I've if you're watching on the YouTube channel, of course, not on the podcast format, you can see I'm putting the commitments on the screen, all 21 that Georgia has right now. So with that being said, Scuffled Town Dog's question was, who do we finish up with in this class? Who does Georgia in this class? Who do they finish with? And you got to think they're going to go anywhere between 28 and 30 in the class. So you got 7, 8, 9 spots to sort out here. We know that they're wanting to, like we said, probably add another edge guy, Trent. Jed, we know they're going to add another interior defensive lineman, whether that's a Kristen Miller, who everybody thinks is the favorite. Of course, Alabama's came knocking down. We'll see. And then, guys like a Sean Washington, who they've had, mutual interest in. So whoever it is, they're going to try to get one more interior defensive lineman, one more edge guy. I think another elite, try to get a elite receiver. So that would put you up to 24 right there. And
then I think 3 defensive back and offensive lineman if it's Ernest Greene.
Yeah, so you'd have Ernest Greene. They're still working on Elijah Pritchett, believe it or not. He's a Columbus guy. Dale McGee's not going to he takes that a little personally when a Columbus guy gets out of the fold a little bit. Dale McGee's still working that angle, so we'll see.
Michael's working on him too.
Oh yeah, Michael was working on him after their game. Elijah and Carver got the best of Hardaway this weekend, but Michael still was doing some recruiting, trying to flip Elijah Pritchett. So that's 2 offensive linemen there. So let's say you go with they're at 21 now. Let's go interior defensive line. So maybe Kristen Miller, maybe somebody like a Marvin Jones on the edge. And then we said a receiver, so it could possibly be a Shaz Preston. And then let's talk about the defensive back. So we got who you think, Trent? Maybe a Kamari Wilson,
Singletary, and Humphrey.
That they could all be in the mix there. So that would put you at 27 right there. And then I think from there it becomes best available. Who's best available, and you probably have 1, maybe 2 spots left. So
you got Shemar, linebacker, inside linebacker. You go to
Shamar James.
Shemar James. You got Ernest. You're gonna have a handful of guys at the end that you're gonna have like 6 or 7 guys, and you got 3 spots. So I think that's when it comes to best available at the very end, and I think you'll see some. Georgia's gonna miss on some, of course, and they're not gonna sign 29 in December. It's just not going to happen. They might sign 25, 26, have 3 or so spots open. and you'll see some guys go into January. So yeah,
And
it'll be interesting.
And there's going to be portal activity for Georgia.
Oh, for
I
sure.
think
But going out and coming in.
Going out and coming in. And I think you'll see that at the receiver position, in and out. I think you'll see that at the quarterback position, in and out. And I think you'll, of course, see it on the defensive, along the defensive front, and maybe even the offensive line, because there's just depth there, and the guys want to play. And when they're stacked up, and when some of those guys leave and you maybe don't feel comfortable, some of those guys who've been the 2 or the 3 leave, and you don't feel comfortable putting a guy who's not had much experience up in his slot, that's when you go find an older guy who's, maybe played for maybe even a lesser successful program, but they've played really well. So we'll see how that goes. I'm going to hit these real quick. We got about 4 questions left. What position will Malachi Starks play at Georgia, and who is the most underrated player currently committed to us? Jed, Trent, y'all opposed to saying that Malachi Starks plays star safety? I know they talk about some offensive stuff, but I just don't see him flipping over, and they have a real need on the defensive side of the ball with all these guys.
Yeah, I would definitely say safety star, and I would definitely say that probably the most underrated would be Dylan Bell or Malachi Starks. I think Starks is a top 30, 40 player in the country. So,
Jed?
Yeah, I agree. Like Trent said, safety star. I mean, I think being enrolling early, they might give him a half a look at receiver, but like I said, he's going to end up at star safety, I think. And yeah, Malachi Starks is definitely underrated. I mean, I think he's definitely, a 5-star caliber guy playing over there at Jefferson.
Yeah, and I think too, I agree, safety. And then my take on underrated player is obviously those 2 that y'all mentioned, but I think Ja'Cory Thomas is someone that is putting up unbelievable senior tape. And Georgia values that tremendously. How do you play in your senior year? And that's big. Ja'Cory Thomas making some huge plays. Ryan Dog, Texas A&M chatter seems to think they have a good chance of flipping MGK, Marquise Groves Killebrew. Any concern here for the Dogs? We've already touched on that. Trent, I think they're gonna come after him, but it would be a shocking flip for me, because he's been the longest recruited and the longest committed guy in this class of 2022.
And there's going to be chatter because Georgia's bringing in talented defensive backs in this class, and what people don't understand is Georgia's losing after losing as many defensive backs they did last year, and they're going to lose 4 out of 5 starters or whatever after this year. And Georgia has a need not only for immediate playing time, but they get a need for depth. I mean, a lot of these guys coming in this class are going to be, first and second teamers right off the bat. So I think there's a big need for that, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. And Texas A&M is an intriguing place, but I think that you're going to hear talk. You're going to hear people talking everywhere, and everybody was sold on Bear going to Texas A&M when he made his announcement to Georgia. You're going to hear that talk elsewhere, but I think right now I don't think he's on flip watch by any means.
And they value Marquise Groves Killebrew. There's a reason he was the first one. They saw his talent early and they identified it. And as much as kids make a commitment to a school, there's schools making commitments to these kids. Telling them, hey, this is what we see out of you. This is what you would mean to this program. This is what we're selling, selling you on when it comes to you playing here. And I think that message has been clear.
They're not trying to bring in a Jaheim Singletary to cut waves from Marquise Groves Killebrew. No. They're trying to land them all.
Absolutely. So. Absolutely. Kirby's getting greedy over there. He wants them all. So Valrico Dog 2. Burden signs with the Dogs in December. Your thoughts? So he's declaring he's going out. Valrico Dog 2 is making a statement that Burden signs with Dogs in December. Jed, thoughts?
I mean, they're going to keep recruiting him for sure. I mean, when you are there, in the final 2 with the guy, and obviously pen has been put to paper yet, they're going to keep recruiting him. I think it's at the trend. I think you said this either last week or week before. If Georgia hadn't been able to sell him with the revamped offense and all that kind of stuff to this point, that doesn't seem like they would change his mind from that perspective in the last month of the season. So I think they'll keep recruiting him. But I think those other 2 guys we talked about earlier, Shaz Preston, Andre Greene, and Kojo as well. I think all 3 of those guys would be better shots to end up in the class than Luther Burden at this point.
This nil process is throwing a kink in some recruitments, and you looking at it, you would think it's Georgia versus Missouri. Yeah, that's pretty lopsided. I mean, look at the spread this weekend; it's 39 points. But there's a lot of other factors when it comes to these recruitments, and the nil process is one of them, and it's really helped schools like Missouri and those type of schools be able to hold on to some guys in state that they wouldn't be able to if nil wasn't in the process.
Yeah, no doubt. But it also makes you wonder with some of those schools like Missouri, are they cutting off their nose to spite their face by going and putting all their resources in, we're going to put this package together, this NIL package to try to market you and get you these, endorsement deals and things like that. But wait, now we can't do that for the other 10 guys that we really need to bring on our roster. We've just got one 5-star receiver. So I think it's going to be, it's a learning curve for a lot of these people.
Mm-hmm.
PA Dog 610, Andre Greene coming for this weekend, Sunday, Monday. Is that an official visit? No, Trent said, reminding me, of course, he did visit on official capacity earlier this summer. Do we have a serious chance to sway? We've already kind of said that. I think Georgia's definitely in the mix, but I still think it's an uphill battle. North Carolina and Clemson not playing great at all this year, but they were, I think, much more consistent in his recruitment early. I know Georgia was on him very early, Trent, but it's just different with Georgia's wide receiver recruiting right now. I think in terms of how North Carolina and Clemson have approached that recruitment.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Georgia was hard on him back in June, and I think at that time North Carolina and Clemson had kind of separated themselves from Georgia, and I think Georgia kind of went towards the Luther Burden, more towards Shaz Preston, because they felt it had a better chance to land him. And now with Clemson and North Carolina kind of trending backwards on the field, that relationship's kind of sparked back up, and we'll see if Georgia can get his foot back in the door. But I would still put Clemson and North Carolina, 1A and 1B in that recruitment.
Absolutely. And then the biggest and best question for last that everybody wants to know: how many silent commits do we have in this class right now? Thanks, love the show. That's from Harley Dog 80. So, Jed, obviously, it's silent commits for a reason, things like that. And also, silent commits are an inexact science, okay, because they are silent by nature. And this is what we go. So, Jed, if you had to say across multiple classes, how many guys do you think Georgia either has silent committed or should feel like are almost locks to this class between 2022 2023?
I would say
don't think out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't say the name. Just
I
say.
would say 5.
Trent?
I would say there's more than 5 right this second. Just because I think there's about 3 in this class, and I think there's more than 3 in the 2023 class. So I would say upwards, 5. I think it's over 5. I think 6 to 8 probably.
Yeah, so Jed being conservative, he's trying to temper it. Trent's just throwing a pipe bomb in there and telling everybody it's coming. So I think it's in that range, the 5 to 8 range. I think there's actually even a 2024 that's getting close to being a commitment to the Georgia Bulldogs. So that's the stark contrast that you see right here between, like I said, Kirby Smart and this Georgia program. They are literally committing and pushing. They're literally recruiting and pushing for commitments for guys all the way out to 2024.
And Mullen's not even recruiting.
And he's not even recruiting this class. Guys, Georgia is laying a foundation to be right at the top. And I've spoken to sources very, very close to Julian Lewis. If you don't know that name, you will come next year. He will be the starting quarterback for Carrollton High School as a freshman next year, playing for Joey King over there, the guy who coached Trevor Lawrence. And Georgia he's been to Georgia 3 times this year, 4 times, twice this summer and 2 games this fall as an 8th grader. And he's one of those generational type talents that you see come through at the quarterback position in the state of Georgia, like, Deshaun Watson came through, Trevor Lawrence came through. Well, Georgia missed out on both of those. Georgia and Kirby Smart are doing their homework right now, and they're building a relationship right now to try to get in on this recruitment while he's an 8th grader. And Georgia has been very impressive to Juju at this point. So I'm gonna say it's right there in that 5 to 8 range, depending on some are more maybe solid silence than others. So that's gonna be it though for our show here tonight, guys. We hope that you enjoy it. Like we said, each and every week we enjoy covering recruiting because, contrary to what Dan Mullen says, recruiting never stops and it's always going. And we are really, really about to ramp up. Like I said, you may want to, some of those players that we've been talking about, especially in the class of 2022, if you're on Twitter, if you're on Instagram, I'd turn on those notifications because you may even get a little bit of action this week with some stuff. So it's especially after a big win over a rival like that with Florida. So for Jed May and Trent Smallwood, I am Blaine Gilmer. Remember, the show is brought to you by Dead Soxy. Go ahead before you get out of here, hit that like button and turn on notifications. Subscribe to the channel. We really, really appreciate it. And we will see you next Monday night. We'll probably go back to 8:15 next Monday night, and we'll have this available on the podcast version tomorrow. So we will see you next week on Rumors versus Facts.